Hey YouTubers, welcome back to EETTO. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Today's episode is about a Canadian political figure named Justin Trudeau and what my opinion is of Mr. Trudeau's performance thus far and what his chances might be to become Prime Minister. So the question really is, despite what the polling indicates and how nervous Stephen Harper is about him with his attack ads, and regardless of how intellectually sharp Tom Mulcair of the NDP, leader of the opposition, may be, does Justin Trudeau live up to the required skill set of leading our great nation? So let's reflect on a few topics related to Justin, and then I'll let you know what I think at the end of the video. So the first one is what I'm going to call his pedigree. Most of us are aware that his father was one of the most famous and impactful prime ministers, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, that our country has ever seen. He established many culturally important policies for our nation: multiculturalism, the metric system for Canada. Westerners will love the fact that he tried to implement a national energy program to share the wealth of the West. But most importantly, he was the first prime minister after successive lousy attempts to actually repatriate our Constitution. So in 1982, the Queen was here and signed our new Constitution, including a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, regardless of what you think of the notwithstanding clause, which kind of means governments can opt out of some of our fundamental rights for 5 years. But anyway, nonetheless, we got the Constitution home. And imagine, if you will, being born into the household of 24 Sussex Drive in Ottawa, the residence of our Prime Minister. You grow up with people like Jean Chrétien and Paul Lalonde and André Ouellette and all sorts of senators and backroom liberal strategists and future prime ministers. Like Jean Chrétien, obviously, Paul Martin, let's not forget John Turner. I mean, all of these people at one point or another were in Trudeau's cabinet. How could you not help but pick up the good old family business as you go along? So he definitely has got the pedigree aspect. So we'll give him, again, a thumbs up on that aspect. After his father's funeral, which was really the time when Justin Trudeau was seen publicly, he spoke eloquently, with intelligence, with fervor, with a passionate heart. I mean, this guy bawled his eyes out in front of the nation at the loss of his father, who he clearly adored and has a striking resemblance to. He came out of the woodwork, and when he did, holy lightning, did people ever like him? They thought he was the best thing since sliced bread, especially if you're a female. I mean, the guy, yeah, I gotta admit, the guy's good looking. He's got awesome hair going for him, which I can relate to. Actually, not so much. Anyway, and then came his first attempt to get into Parliament from a riding in Quebec, where he's born and from, obviously, and he wins, but he's a backbencher. I mean, he's on the opposition side. He's only got less than 5 years worth of parliamentary experience, and then he has the audacity to announce he's going to run for the leadership of the federal Liberal Party and basically say, I want to be Prime Minister after the next election. Well, there was like about 10 candidates, if not more, for that job. And between the media and all the hype around Justin Trudeau and, basically whether he was riding the coattails of his father with the same last name, or whether it was just his dashing good looks, one way or another. Unfortunately for the other candidates, one of which who actually went into space, which is no small feat, once again, the hair. Thank you, the rest of you 7 to 10 odd liberals, for running against me, but I just won by a landslide, which he did. So he radically took over the Liberal Party, and I personally believe a lot of it has to do with his fantastic hair. So now he's in the Liberal Party and leading the Liberal Party, and it's all based on pretty much charisma. And like his father, he's got it. Now, his father, as I recall, and after reading some books on his father, was a little socially askew, in the sense that Pierre could get up in a crowd and give a rousing but meaningful speech and get everyone really revved up. But in a one-on-one type of environment or a small dinner party atmosphere, he was a very shy man and very hard to get to know unless he felt you were worthy of his level of intelligence, which was probably way off the IQ scale. But Justin doesn't seem to have that problem. He's got a lot of his mother in him, and it shows in his good looks. We've already mentioned his hair, his speaking ability. I mean, the way he touches people, and he's so smiley, and I mean, how can you not like the guy? I mean, really. I mean, he's had a few gaffes, but he's not really offended anyone, and he's just such a great people person. So, to the point that even after becoming a politician, groups across the country were paying him to go speak. I mean, most politicians need to pay to go speak just to get an audience, but Justin had it the other way around. Now, that in and of itself probably wasn't the wisest thing for him to do, particularly after becoming leader. And but to his credit, he gave the money back. But I think he was getting like $10,000 a speech. I mean, that's something that only former prime ministers do on this, the lecture circuit, or whatever you want to call it. So, like it or lump it, the guy's got a heck of a lot of people skills and charisma. And we all know these days, in the age of television and instant media, that in politics, charisma is at least as important as your policies when it comes to actually getting out the vote and getting people to show up. Another thing about Justin, and here in Canada, where we are officially bilingual from coast to coast to coast. Yeah, right. Anyway, being able to fluently speak French and English with the right accent and the proper grammar and making people feel like you're one of them pretty much is a necessity these days to become Prime Minister. And for those of us from English Canada, like me, who make an attempt to learn the second language, second official language of our country, well, it just sounds bad. It really, when the words, come out of our bouches here, it's icky. It's embarrassing. But again, like his father, Justin was raised fluently bilingual and has no problem flipping back and forth very easily, intelligently, and with a perfect sense of context with respect to the language into Acadian, Quebecois, English, whatever, without accent. I mean, you wouldn't even think this guy actually spoke another language. So, thumbs up on the linguistics there, Mr. Trudeau. Here's the big thing with Justin so far, I'd say up until last week, is that many political pundits are all agreeing, this guy can walk on water. He's top of the polls as far as, likability goes. But where's the substance? Where are the policy platforms? What are his economic strategies? What is he going to do if he gets into power? Well, last week, I think Justin blew the cap off any sort of doubts that he lacked his father's spine when it comes to making decisions and executing them without regard for what people think. As we all know, here in Canada, we've had a bit of a spending scandal going on in the Senate, and the Prime Minister appears to be hiding some fairly important information, but we can't crack them, as usual. But nonetheless, oddly, Justin, from when this story broke in the fall of last year, right up until last week, was strangely absent of opinions about the Senate, which, left the field wide open for Tom Mulcair and the NDP, the official opposition, to go just hammer at Prime Minister Harper and the Conservative government, who also just stood pat with the same answers over and over and over again. But the question arises, much like the last point around substance and policy, is where's Justin? Where do the Liberals stand on this whole thing? And half the Senate's made up of Liberals. But then, Wednesday of last week came, and Mr. Trudeau, in a very savvy manner, I must give him credit for, with probably less than 5 people knowing, other than himself, what he was about to do, called a press conference and declared that there are no longer any Liberals in the Senate. He basically expelled them from his caucus. And for those of you that don't follow parliamentary politics too much, the caucus essentially in Parliament is made up of the elected MPs and the appointed senators from the party. So normally you would have the senators and the MPs of the Liberal Party at least once a week getting together with Justin and having a little powwow. Well, the good old senators are no longer invited, and they're no longer considered to be Liberal senators in the minds of the Liberal Party. So they don't lose their jobs. They're just independents now. They can do whatever they want, which I think is awesome, because the Senate is supposed to be the upper chamber, the the chamber of sober second thought on legislation before it gets passed and given royal assent. And he has now freed them all up, which was a gutsy frickin' move, dude, because these guys are like the heavyweights that his father and Chrétien and Paul Martin and maybe even John Turner, though he's only prime minister for like half a year, appointed to the Senate as Liberals to support any Liberal government in the lower house or the House of Commons. So, and these are usually patronage appointments, which means these guys weren't necessarily politicians. They were like backroom organizers type of thing, but really brainy, lots of connections, very powerful people. And he is basically taking his right arm and, actually this is my left arm, nonetheless, cutting it off and making a statement to the nation that when he becomes prime minister, he is going to formulate a new appointment process based on merit, not based on political affiliation. And he won't stand for people in the Senate having political affiliation because he sees no point in having that. We've got it in the House of Commons, and that's good enough. Well, man, oh man, has the media just exploded all over this one, leaving the Prime Minister, who's been supposedly the big let's reform the Senate guy for the last decade, but really done nothing, and the NDP, whose only opinion is let's get rid of it, but we can't do that without opening the Constitution, which is kind of like virtually impossible to get the territories and provinces to unanimously agree to amend the Constitution. So what's the likelihood of that policy coming out? And now there's Justin, who hasn't said anything in theory. He's gone and done something without having to open anything. So he is, I think most media folk, myself included, are thinking, okay, when it comes to spine and substance, okay, you found your policy, you found your substance, you actually went right ahead and did it without consultation with the party. If I had more thumbs, they'd be up right now. You have spine, Justin. Good on you. So out of all of these criteria that I have been reflecting on, now it's time, and I know you're all waiting with bated breath, for my opinion. And while the game is not over yet, I think we have seen enough of Justin Trudeau to say that he's got it going for him from a momentum standpoint. He is attractive. He is able to connect with Canadians regardless of their linguistic background. He obviously is not scared to do things, much like his father, who famously did that to the Canadian public when they didn't like what he was doing. But I think Justin's has a softer edge to him, but no less substance. So I guess you're seeing where I'm going here. For EETTO, I'm Dave, and my declaration on Justin Trudeau is he is definitely not fluff, but he is substance. So please, send me your thoughts. Write in the comments, subscribe, like, dislike. Please, for God's sakes, do something. I would really appreciate it, and I'll certainly respond to any comments that come through as a variety of themes. So thanks for watching. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, EETTO, and you have a fantastic day. Bye.